Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, it's NBA takeaways from week 2. We're excited to bring them to you. We're going to talk about Ja Morant. We're going to talk about Trae Young. We're going to talk about a couple teams that we're excited to discuss. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you? By the time most people listen to this, I don't know. Some people may listen as soon as it comes out, but a majority of people, I would say still, hoops will be in full swing. College basketball will have opening day fully going, maybe already have happened. I know we're going to talk NBA draft. People can check that out on another episode here that will drop soon, but we're full go, Sam. I mean, we're getting scary close to not having to say, I know it's a small sample size with every single thing we say. We'll have to say that again today, but we're getting close to not having to say it anymore. Get college hoops going, obviously international stuff in full swing. It's a great time. I love the start of seasons.
It's officially basketball season. Let's give just a few show announcements first, right? So Bryce mentioned NBA draft. NBA draft season is officially going to be in full swing starting on Monday. Our plan for recording is that there will now be 3 episodes a week. So what Bryce and I are doing is on Sundays, we are recording something similar to NBA takeaways, or we'll talk about the biggest news and notes of the week or the things that we're most excited to talk about. That will come out on Monday. And then we will also record a draft takeaways, draft show of sorts for Tuesday that will go up on Tuesday morning. That is the plan. That is the vibe. That is what we're trying to do across the board here. So Monday, you will have normal NBA show. Tuesdays, you will have a draft show. And then Friday morning, you will have normal NBA show again that you guys know and love, where Bryce and I just go live after the games on Thursdays. Or we don't go live after the games on Thursdays now, but we record after the games on Thursdays, I guess now. And then this will go up on Friday morning and we'll talk about everything that has occurred over the previous week. So that's the plan as it currently exists for the show. Also, go to the Game Theory Substack, gametheorysamv.substack.com, gametheorysamv.substack.com. It is the best place to get video breakdowns of prospects, players in the NBA, guys that Bryce and I find interesting. There's just a whole lot of fun stuff up there, guys. Now, one thing with the Substack, I am aware that some of you guys have tried to subscribe and are struggling to do so. You're trying to give us your hard-earned money, and for whatever reason, Substack or the payment app will not let you do so. We are working on that on the back end. I particularly am working on that on the back end. We are trying to make it so that is not an issue anymore. I would guess that we will have that figured out. Hopefully by Monday, could be more like Tuesday or Wednesday, but gametheorysamv.substack.com. Go subscribe. Shout out to the folks that have hit me behind the scenes saying, hey, really trying to subscribe, have tried to do this, a couple of people that, have really raised this issue. Thank you for doing that. I don't know what's going on there totally yet, but we are working on it and that's happening. So thank you, but go subscribe at least for free now. And then I will make sure and announce on the show, at least maybe on Thursday or Friday, that hopefully this issue is figured out and we'll be able to, have no problems moving forward. Okay. So Bryce, do you just want to get into takeaways here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So my first NBA takeaway refers to what happened on Friday night with the Memphis Grizzlies and Los Angeles Lakers. After the game, Ja Morant was suspended for 1 game following Look, I would argue like pretty poor effort, honestly. In his last rotation, I felt like where he came in with like 5 minutes left in the game. I'm truly not sure that he went inside the 3-point line on the offensive end in those entire 5 minutes. And it really felt like he kind of just hit the eject button a little bit mentally. And we've come to find out that, you know, after the game from Shams, there were apparently some words spoken between he and Tuomasi Salo. There was some sort of frustrating thing that resulted in the Grizzlies suspending Ja Morant for 1 game following this discussion, let's go with, that was had. They felt that it wasn't right, according to Shams. So my first takeaway here is this is now officially the hinge point of Ja Morant's career in Memphis. Like, whatever happens following this point, I'm not somebody that's going to sit here and say that this can't get figured out. I don't know if it can or not. You know, I'm not in the locker room. I don't know what's going on with Ja Morant. I hope that everything is okay in his personal life. I hope that it really is just like a frustration with, you know, the coaching staff that can be remedied in some way. But this is now the point to me where this comes to a head. I know that people will look at the past, you know, issues where he was suspended for the end of the season 2 years ago, 23 games. Last season, he had a couple of moments where he was fined for gestures involving guns. This year is different to me because A, we have all of that past baggage that has been built up. More importantly, though, next season, Ja Morant is eligible for a rather large extension. And the team is going to have to make a decision on if they want to commit to him long term. He has 2 years left on his contract following this one, 42.1 million, about 45 million in 2027-28. I would imagine that if he does not get the extension that the Grizzlies, you know, or that he wants, and the Grizzlies decide, no, we need more evidence from you, he will probably be frustrated. And I think at that point, that's where the relationship really would start to fray in a significant way. I think already you can see that there are frustrations probably on both sides, but certainly Ja Morant is wearing those frustrations a little bit more on his sleeve. But I would say that now, like the next 45 or so games before the trade deadline are the hinge point of Ja Morant's career in Memphis. If this doesn't get figured out, and if they decide, oh no, like this is not our guy, we can't commit long-term dollars to him, this is probably the time where he has to move on and the team will have to move on. But I don't think that that is fait accompli. That doesn't have to be the way that this goes. That's why to me, it's not like I'm saying this is the beginning of the end for Ja Morant in Memphis. To me, this moment right here is the hinge point because the team, even through all of Ja's past transgressions, let's call them for lack of a better word, the team felt very committed to him before. I think even past this point, they will likely posture that they are still committed to him. But this summer is where you make the extension decision where it's kind of shit or get off the pot at a certain point too. So to me, this right here, following this frustrated press conference, whatever happened in the locker room with Ja and Isalo, this is now the point where this is official. We are now at the swing stage of what's going to happen with Ja Morant in Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, last season, he's unhappy with the offense. They make the move to bring in a different offense that's more pick and roll centric. I was just looking up where he lands as an individual player in terms of ball screen frequency, and looks like he's a top 15 player in terms of frequency of ball screens run. For what it's worth, he's under 1 point per possession. win running ball screens as the handler. As a team, Memphis is obviously much higher than they were last year when they were running. What's the assistant coach's name that's now getting
Noah LaRouche?
Noah LaRouche that's getting all the credit with the Miami Heat or whatever. So to me, there was a little bit of, okay, we're going to choose. I don't know if they like chose Ja, but they made a decision that benefited Ja and what Ja wanted in terms of play style and all of that. Go ahead.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I'm not as convinced that decision to remove Taylor Jenkins was solely like around Ja Morant. Okay. Like in the offensive structure. I think that it probably played a part for sure, but I think that it was more, my read on it was more that they had kind of thought, okay, we're probably not just winning a title with this scheme and with Taylor Jenkins in the fold. Let's make a change. Let's get a new voice in. Let's see what, this can look like. They obviously think very highly of Isalo and the scheme that Isalo won with in Paris, right? But I think that there was more to it than just as simple as I've seen that narrative floated that they fired Taylor Jenkins and Noah LaRouche in order to, implement a scheme that makes sense for Ja Morant. And that was the reason they did it. I think it was more nuanced than just that, is my impression.
That's fair. I will say though, the team stuck through everything you mentioned earlier. And also he is, even if they didn't do it for him, I guess my ultimate point is he's in a system he should be happy with, right? Like they're in a new system now that does put the ball in his hands and lets him run ball screens and those type of things. So I guess my ultimate point is I feel like Ja's in a situation where he should feel some level of commitment from an organization that has stuck through things, the hard times with him, and have put him in a situation to be successful. It's not like he's put an awful roster around him throughout his career in Memphis. And so I guess this is a long way of getting to it. I agree with you. Like, I do wonder if Memphis decides, do we want to stay in the Ja Morant is the face of our franchise business or not? Do we want to pay him and give him the extension that locks him in here longer term? Or do they need to decide, okay, we aren't going to win at the highest level with him. We don't feel like he's that guy. How do we get off of that? What's that trade look like? And then how do we build this out without him? I'm with you. I don't think they're to that point yet, but for just a 1-game suspension thing, it does seem like it did rock headlines a little bit in terms of, man, this seems meaningful, but sometimes these things also end up in a very positive way. It's totally Ja. I don't want to say he was purposely testing the limits, but maybe does something, says something, whatever. Players do this all the time. And it actually opens up a narrative and a conversation and gets you into a room to have those that ends up in a very positive thing. And you can have real conversations that maybe before that you were beating around the bush a little bit and there wasn't the direct communication. Sometimes maybe they're just, for lack of a better term, like maybe they had the coming to Jesus meeting as a result of this and things end up in a better place.
I will say this. I think it's very possible that Ja Morant could have been holding things back.
Sure.
My impression of Isalo from people over in Europe and just like having talked to some folks that have been around him and things is that there's no beating around the bush with him. Like, he is somebody that tells it to you straight, no matter what. And I've been told, frankly, that like his communication style can be very upfront and very like, he will just say it the way that he feels it at the time. And there's no sugarcoating it. And that can be like a problem for some people, or it can be like fine with other people. Right. But there's no message management with him. You know what I mean? I'm telling it to you straight. And it's not to say even that he's like a hard ass or a disciplinarian. It's just that like he is a very like straightforward human being is the way it's been phrased to me. right? So it's very possible that Ja Morant kind of let some things build up and then kind of let them out in a moment, right? Like that'd be plausible to me. But I can say, like, I don't know that I see Solo changing from the way that he is, right? So, and look, here's the thing too with me. The Lakers game was kind of a perfect encapsulation of what my issues are with Ja Morant on some level as a player, right? I don't know that he's gotten better. And the reality is that in the first half of that game, they score 69 points. They look awesome. It felt like a real team effort to me, where they were like running up and down the court. You had great ball movement. You had you had a lot of like ball screen stuff. Like, absolutely, that is true. Isalo really wants to run a lot of ball screens, but like you had Ja running ball screens and he was making high level passes. You had like kick out Cedric Coward in the corner and he was driving. You had like Cam Spencer running really high level like stuff. I thought he was really impressive to me. And then in the second half, the Lakers adjusted. They went like super off of him. They were going under ball screens in the first half, but they were really going under in the second half. And they decided, all right, we're just going to let him beat us, right? So in the second half, in the third quarter, he misses 3 straight threes to start the third quarter. And it felt like that. Like, I'm sure that there are other points where like he hit the eject button for reasons that happened privately in the locker room, but like it did just feel to me like he hit the eject button mentally for that game. I'm not saying he hit the eject button on Memphis. I'm saying that like for that game, it just felt like he was done. Like there was a moment where like he gets Austin Reeves in a switch and just decides to do absolutely nothing, not attack. He just kicks it out, right? Did it again, like in the corner at one point. He had a switch and was just like, nope, I'm just going to reverse it, right? It was a very, like, you can't, look, I love Cam Spencer, right? Cam Spencer is my guy that I have talked about on the show for 3 years now. If the Grizzlies are going to be successful, Cam Spencer can't outplay Ja Morant, and Cam Spencer outplayed Ja Morant in that game. That's the reality. Like, he played better than he did. He made quicker decisions. He knocked down shots from, kind of all levels of the court. He played better in ball screens, frankly, than what Ja did. It's probably the first time that that's happened at any point in either of their careers, but it was kind of the reality that I felt like. And it was frustrating. It was really frustrating to watch. I totally get it. If I was Isalo and if I was Zach Kleiman and the folks running the Grizzlies in the front office, like, I had no problem. Like, even from the outside, I had no problem with them suspending him without knowing what happened on the inside, because it was so clear watching the game that he just completely like stopped attacking, right? He stopped attacking. And Ja Morant is an attack-oriented player first and foremost. He has to be getting downhill and has to be getting out in transition. Otherwise, he's not all that like valuable, right? The whole thing with Ja Morant is that he's this incredible athlete and speed demon who can make decisions on the fly and play like, at a haywire pace and really, really lead you as a lead guard and create shots for everybody on the court. If he's not like getting downhill and getting paint touches, like, he's not useful to the team. So I had no problem with this. And now it's all about how it recovers from there. Because that was a frustrating game for me. I completely understood it watching that, because I was just like, this is immensely, immensely frustrating for Ja just to watch the Lakers come back in this game. Again, it was like a 14-point game at half. I think it got to like 17 at one point, and just like decide not to attack and not get aggressive.
And I don't think, maybe not always in this context, but this isn't uncommon for a player that's been somewhere for 5, 6, whatever. How many years is Morant?
This is year 7 for Ja now.
With the same organization that drafted him, that hasn't won at the highest level yet. I don't think it's uncommon for there to come a point, a season, a moment where an organization has to make a decision. We said this, like, we didn't talk about Ja with this, but we talked about it with Trae Young all off season, where we felt like this season in general was, we didn't use the term a hinge point, but hey, hey, is Trae going to get it done here because we put this roster around him? I don't, LaMelo Ball is another one, and we've given LaMelo his flowers here to start the beginning of the year.
Totally.
In terms of how he's played.
This is a great point.
Where I feel like this season was a little bit of a hinge point for LaMelo. And so far, LaMelo has answered the bell in terms of the way he's approached the game and attacked the game and the effort he's given, even in games where he hasn't made shots. You made that point. And so I don't think it's uncommon that this is where we're at with John Morant, but I do think it's important to bring it up because he wasn't a name that we had been discussing in regards to this coming into the season as much as maybe a Trae Young or even a LaMelo. So I think it probably is about the right time in Memphis where they made a huge change this offseason. They have draft capital moving forward, and they probably have to make a decision of, do we think that Ja can lead us where we want to go, or is it time to pivot to something else?
That's exactly right. So we'll see what happens in Memphis. He's not playing today, Sunday. We're recording this before the Raptors game. We'll see what happens there. And then Monday they play the Pistons. So we shall see. Ja will play that game, I would imagine, and hopefully he responds in a really aggressive way. That'd be great. I'd be excited about that. So, okay. Before we move on to Bryce's first takeaway, we got to shout out our friends over at Trade Coffee. Trade Coffee is a longtime sponsor of the Game Theory podcast. It is that time of year when you want to treat yourself or someone else to something a little special. With Trade, you can get matched to incredible coffees from independent roasters all over the U.S. delivered fresh and perfectly suited to your taste. It's thoughtful, it's personal, and it's delicious because Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the U.S. Their team of expert baristas, tasters, and Q graders use real coffee knowledge to match you with coffees you'll love. They curate over 450 coffees so you can try something new with every delivery, and there's guaranteed variety no matter what your roast or taste preference is. Look, my wife and I, we have very different tastes in coffee. A lot of the time I'm drinking decaf as it is because of the ADHD medication, but I tend to like something that has a bit more bite to it. Laura tends to like something that's a little bit smoother. Trade has done an unbelievable job of just making sure that we always have what we want in the house for each of us. Every recommendation is personalized. It's not an algorithm. So you discover new roasters and coffees perfectly suited to your taste every single time. And you can just take Trade's quick quiz and they're going to find the perfect match for you. If your first bag isn't quite right, they're going to replace it for free until they get it quite right. Right now, Trade is offering 50% off a 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/game. And they're offering 10% off gifts for the holiday season. That's drinktrade.com/game, GAME, to get 50% off a 1-month trial and 10% off of gifts. drinktrade.com/game. We're also going to shout out Rula here. Look, taking care of your mental health shouldn't be harder than taking care of your physical health. If you pull a muscle, you go see a doctor. But when it comes to finding the right therapist, suddenly it can be frustrating. You get onto these long wait lists or you're staring down huge costs that come out of pocket. That's usually what stops people from getting health. But that is where Rula comes in. Rula makes therapy simple, affordable, and fast. And if you've ever waited on waiting lists like I have, again, the whole ADHD thing, figuring that out late in life, that required me going to therapists. And if you've ever waited on a wait list that they say is going to take 2 weeks to 4 weeks, and you're 6 weeks in and you're waiting for somebody that you think is a match, it can be so frustrating. With Rula, you're not just matched and left to figure it out. They check in and make sure you're actually making progress. Every therapist on the platform is licensed, vetted, and picked for their expertise. So you know you're talking to someone legit, not just whoever happens to be available. Rula helps you find the right fit without the hassle. They're connected to over 15,000 licensed therapists and psychiatrists nationwide. Their therapy does not break the bank. Rula works with most major insurance plans. Sessions can cost as little as $15, in some cases even $0, depending on your benefits. They give you full support from start to finish. Rula isn't just some directory. They help you book points. They stay on top of your schedule. And they keep track of progress so you actually get somewhere with therapy. There are only top tier providers of therapy, and everything there is in one place, which makes it so simple and easy. You get the full scope of care that you need, and there's no time wasted navigating between platforms or offices. Thousands of guys have already used Rula to finally get the care they need. Don't keep putting it off. Go to rula.com/game theory. That's GAMETHEORY. Rula, RULA.com/game theory. Take the first step, get connected, and take control of your mental health. Okay, Bryce, you are up here. What is your first takeaway?
My first takeaway is 6 or 7 games into the season, 5 or 6, I guess. The Eastern Conference is more wide open than we thought going into the season. And I want to know who makes an early move to go for it in 25-26 in the Eastern Conference. Is there a team out there like the Chicago Bulls, who I have a takeaway as well, if you don't steal it first, or the Detroit Pistons, or the Miami Heat, that decide, hey, the Knicks don't look like they're unbeatable. The Cavs haven't looked great. The Hawks are okay. Trae Young's going to miss a month here. The Magic haven't been able to figure out how to incorporate Dez Bane yet. We can go make a move now, have our player for longer, and we can really go make a run for this 1 seed and a run at the Eastern Conference.
I am going to steal the Bulls from you next, so just be prepared for that. Yeah, sorry, because I watched a lot of Bulls games. I was debating whether or not to make it like a running bit on the show for like the first month of the year that I haven't watched the Chicago Bulls.
Just don't
the Bulls
talk about them.
Yeah, the Bulls were like one of the last teams I got to, but oh my God, are they fun? We'll talk about them in a second here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. So I don't even know that I agree with you. The East is interesting, is maybe the way to put it.
Well, yeah, to be clear, I didn't say better than expected. I said more wide open than expected.
Okay. So that makes me feel better about this.
Yeah. Not better, more like, oh, the Cavs and Knicks don't look dominant. The Hawks and Magic don't look like they're in a tier after those teams by themselves. Hell, maybe Chicago should go after this thing. I would have said Philly or Milwaukee, but I don't know what their mechanisms are to quote unquote go for it. I suppose there are some trades there, but just like, what do teams now think in terms of their opportunity to go win the East? If you're Detroit, do you go, can we wait for Jaden Ivey to get back? How long do we wait after he gets back? Or do we make a move for a Lauri Markkanen and Trae? I don't know if Lauri's actually on the market. They're kind of fun right now too. Trae Murphy, somebody like, do you go make a move earlier because you really think this is wide open? And as you put there, you can make a leap in the conference standings because everybody else is either figuring it out or isn't going to figure it out. Yeah.
Like the team that's really funky in that regard for me is the team that's behind you, the Pistons, right? Like they're 4-2. I don't know. Like, how do you feel about how the Pistons have played so far? Because I'm like struggling with it a little bit.
So we recorded this morning. We went through all of their offensive stuff, and it's just like they're number 1 in the NBA in 2-point attempts, but bottom 10 or something like that in 2-point percentage. Their 3-point stuff is not good. They take one of the lowest volumes. They're awful from the free throw line, but somehow their offensive rating is still 18th because similar to the Houston Rockets, but not as good, but they offensive rebound everything. They're like 3rd in offensive rebound percentage. Cade has not figured it out yet. Karras has not been good so far, but the defense has been good enough to hold them up. And so I actually do think that they're an interesting team with this. Can you wait for Jaden Ivey to get back? Once he gets back, do you give him a month? Do you give him 2 months? Do you have to be shorter? Is there actually a move out there? Even what if it's even a 1 year move? What if it's a CJ McCollum or Anthony Simons or something like that? That's just like, I know those guys don't move the needle, but for Detroit, they might, because they can actually score the basketball, which this team, so it's just like, do teams get aggressive more quickly, I guess is what I'm wondering.
Yeah. It is interesting. Do teams get more aggressive quickly? Like the Pistons are kind of a prime example. The fact that they're 4-2 right now, with all of the factors that you said, honestly kind of gives me like a little bit more hope for them, because they are finding ways to just win. Like they got absolutely dump trucked by Cleveland. Like I watched that game.
Yeah,
but
awful.
Yeah, like I absolutely got, obliterated there. But, then you go back, you beat Dallas, you kind of kick the shit out of Orlando in that second half of that game, right? And it's like, well, okay, maybe we have figured things out a little bit with the defense here. Or is it that Dallas is like a clogged toilet right now? Orlando is a clogged toilet right now on offense, in the half court at least. Maybe we're still figuring things out a little bit more on defense than what we think when we play teams that can execute like Cleveland can, right? So I think you're right that this is wide open. And, we're going to talk about the Hawks later for sure, obviously, in this episode, just given the Trae Young of it all. But I think this is a good point, because maybe this is where we can talk about the Knicks, right? Because the Knicks are 2-3 right now. The offense looks just very clunky. Cat particularly looks like he's still trying to find what his role is with the Knicks. And I almost think that maybe we should focus our time on what the top of the East looks like right now within this thing. And, because we're going to talk about a couple of the mid-tier teams later on, or especially the team at the top right now. I mean, what have been your impressions of the Knicks to this point? Because it feels like to me when I watch them that there was this idea that the offense is going to look cleaner and better under Mike Brown. And I don't think that has been the case thus far. And it's largely to me because, people got really excited about the idea of starting, two bigs with like Mitchell Robinson and playing two bigs together. Right. But like Ariel Hookporty has started 2 games. Mitch has obviously started a game. It feels like they are searching more than what you would expect a team that returned as much of their roster, year over year, would be searching, even with a coaching change coming into the year.
I think some of that is Cat, as you mentioned. The other thing is their depth. Just it's got to be a concern. And the most recent game I watched of the Knicks was actually against the Bulls. And the Bulls, I mean, New York could not guard them. They couldn't keep anybody in front of them. But I also I have real questions about their depth and kind of the size of their depth. You think about like Shamet off the bench and Kolek off the bench and Clarkson off the bench. Those guys are small in some capacity, like either truly short or like just not like they're skinny. And Josh Hart looks like he has no idea what his role is on this team coming off the bench. Yabusele had a really good year last year with Philly. I love the pickup. He hasn't found his footing with this team. This is actually going to be one of my takeaways, so I won't spoil it, but just like players integrating into new teams. And so maybe that's part of it with some of these guys off the bench. But as you mentioned, the starting lineup, or specifically Brunson, Towns, Bridges, and Anunoby, those guys were all there last year. Deuce has been there for multiple years. I still think they're talented. I still would probably pick them to finish top 4 in the East if you made me do it right now. But they certainly, haven't looked what I thought they were going to look like coming into the year. Now you are integrating a new coach. So there is some time stuff in terms of this, but I wouldn't look at them if I was another team and just go, oh no, they're so good. Mike Brown flipped everything on its head there. The new starting lineup is working perfectly. The depth looks awesome. Josh Hart is 6th man of the year, like I predicted. Or as I brought his name up and go, why would we make an all-in move whenever the Knicks are out here crushing the league? They haven't looked like that at all so far.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of look at their most common lineups to this point. It just doesn't like they've only had 4 lineups that have played at least 20 or 19 minutes together to this point, just because like guys have been like a little bit in and out with injury, right? Like Deuce has played 3 games, Hart only played 4, Mitch has just come back for the 1 game, right? Hook Porty's been in and out because of that. So it has been like more hit or miss for them in terms of even just like rebuilding that chemistry to me. That you would expect them to have just immediately. But like the Towns, Anunoby, Bridges, Brunson, McBride lineup, to me, when you have those 4 guys out there, particularly Brunson, Towns, Anunoby, Bridges, that's where you have to like thrive and survive and just absolutely kind of destroy teams, right? And if you look at those 4 guys, they do have a net rating of 12 when they're on the court together. So that's working. It's just that what that says to me is that whenever you take one of those guys off, to your point about the depth, things fall apart for one reason or another. And it's because there are a lot of kind of one-way players on this roster outside of Deuce and Hart. Like Mitch isn't really much of an offensive guy, even though he's a great offensive rebounder and finishes when he's around the rim. And again, Mitch has only played 1 game and played 20 minutes. So like remove him from what the whole season looks like to this point. Shamet doesn't really defend and hasn't made shots at the level he needs to. Jordan Clarkson doesn't really defend and hasn't made shots at the level that he needs to. Yabusele has not made shots at the level that he needs to. I've actually really liked the Kolek minutes so far this year. I think that he moves the ball and like kind of gets them in and out of their lineups, like they're in and out of their sets and in and out of what they're trying to do offensively, like pretty crisply. But, look, like how much of that is something that you can like fully rely on, game after game after game. I will say that like in his 52 minutes, they're only a minus 3.9. And when he's off the court, they're a minus 2.2. So what that says to me is that given that he's typically coming in, a decent amount of time for Brunson, right, that he actually is kind of holding his own out there. You would expect his number to always be lower given who he's replacing. But yeah, like the Knicks are in a really interesting position where if you think that they're going to take longer to come together than what you expect, we've talked about the Sixers and the Magic and the Bucks on the last episode. So please, if you're curious about those teams, we really went in depth on those 3 teams on the last episode. So I don't know that I see the need to like really, really dig in there, but Indiana's 1-5 right now. And they're just so injured. Halliburton obviously out for most of the year, if not all of the year. McConnell out, Obi Toppin out, like
Nemhard's been out here at the beginning.
Nemhard's out, obviously. Like they just don't have the ability to offense in the half court at this point to me. And then defensively, they haven't been able to keep anybody out of the paint every time I watch them. So that's a whole issue. Cleveland, I feel like generally fine about for what it's worth. Part of this for them is that their 3-point attempt rate continues to be first in the league, and they're just like 17th in 3-point percentage right now. They've been a bit more turnover prone without Darius Garland in the lineup than what you would expect. I would think that will kind of bounce back. And then I would think that they will, in all likelihood, at least at some point, rebound the ball better on the offensive end, given that they're going to play 2 bigs for a significant portion of the time when they're out there with their big 4 guys. So Cleveland, I still think is like pretty clearly the pick here in the East. And that's kind of the way I felt in the preseason. But the rest of the teams, to your point, like we'll talk about Atlanta. We're going to talk about Chicago. We've talked about Orlando, Milwaukee, and the 76ers already recently. It does just feel like a really wide open target right now.
And so my thing was, does that get a team to make something earlier? Do you not wait all the way until the deadline? Could we see movement a little bit? And I know like it's harder to do that because not as many guys are eligible to be traded. And if you want to, add guys and whatever, I'm not saying it's going to happen November 15th. I just wonder if teams are a little more aggressive earlier in kind of when the trade cycle does happen, or if we see a big move from a team that decides, hey, maybe they were thinking we'll wait until the summer of 2026. Goodness, I've done that twice today. Instead of waiting till the summer of 2026 to make my move, I'm actually going to go ahead and do it now because I see a path for my team to make a run at this thing.
Well, and like a team we haven't talked about here is Miami, right? Like, Miami's always aggressive, but like Miami could also look at moving Andrew Wiggins at some point, right? Like, I'm intrigued to see who is actually available. Because like right now, we could speculate about like John Morant. We can speculate about Lauri Markkanen, but like my indication is that like neither of those teams want to move those guys right now.
Sure.
Right. So, okay, well, who's actually available? Like when we did in the preseason prediction on like the biggest name that gets moved at the deadline at the Athletic. And my prediction was Andrew Wiggins. I was like, I kind of think that this is going to be a quiet deadline and then things go a little bit haywire in the off season. Right. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe because the East is so wide open, you do see teams from the East decide, oh no, we're going for this now. Like Detroit could realistically be like, we have Cade Cunningham. Maybe Ivy has come back and is playing well. We have Asar Thompson who has looked outstanding so far this year. Jalen Duren has looked better, I would say, even than what like he looks like contract year Jalen Duren we're getting, right? They could be a team that like really decides, you know what, let's do this. Let's go for this right now.
And I don't even know if it has to be a huge name. And that's why I brought up the names for Detroit that I did. I'm sure people will go look at those guys' numbers and be like, well, those aren't needle movers. But if you're Detroit and your fatal flaw right now is floor spacing and just shooting and shot making, you don't have to it doesn't have to necessarily be Lowry, but the more games you get out of, say, Anthony Simons. I'm just using him because he's a name that he's a guy that can make shots and I think is realistically on the move. The earlier you get him, the more games he can help you win, the longer you can get to integrate him into your team, the potential for, more movement in the standings. And so that's why I wonder, or if you're Chicago, do you actually look at your roster and go, okay, what is our fatal flaw for us being a top 3 seed in the East? Let's attack it right now. I'm not saying they trade for a star. I'm saying, do they look at their roster and go, okay, we could really use a wing defender. We're going to be the team that goes and gets Andrew Wiggins that nobody expected to happen. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to, like, I just wonder if teams will do that more aggressively, sooner than maybe we would normally see in a season.
Well, or like, the team that lines up with the Pistons particularly remains Sacramento, right? Like it would just be very easy for Sacramento to send one of Malik Monk or Dennis Schroeder at the deadline to Detroit. And like Schroeder obviously has experience there already. It would track to me that he would be a guy that would make sense for them. Malik Monk would make a lot of sense for them. If the Duncan Robinson thing, they just decide like isn't working out, he has an expiring deal. Essentially, you could get the Kings off of a little bit of future money and get them a little bit more flexible. Like that's something that just still lines up for me at the deadline.
Well, that was the other thing, was how quickly do some of these other teams decide they're willing to move on from guys? I don't know what Brooklyn, Cam Thomas stuff. I don't know that the Wizards, what do the Wizards do with Middleton and McCollum? If I was the Wizards, I would keep those guys. But, we've had that conversation. Does Indiana lose enough that they ever even consider any of their guys? But in the West, I mean, you never know what the Pelicans are going to do, but they lost again while we recorded this to continue to be, one of 2 winless teams in the NBA at time of recording. Maybe Brooklyn will get one as we record here tonight. You mentioned Sacramento. Phoenix is like a real interesting team right now in the West that, that's crazy. Have you looked at their 3-point attempts individually? It's crazy. How many 3-pointers they're getting up between Booker and Brooks and Allen and Gillespie. But like they're a team that
like Royce O'Neal too.
Yeah.
By the way, Like they are just absolutely chucking out there. It's kind of glorious, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wondered if there's teams that may fall into, hey, they're potential trade partners as well, depending on how the next month or two still goes.
Okay. So let's go to takeaway number 3 here. I am going to steal the Bulls from you.
This should have been number 1. They're the story of the week right now for me.
Well, I think that Ja was unfortunately story of the week, which is why I started there. But man, what an incredibly fun team the Chicago Bulls are. And I think that that's like where I'm just like so blown away. And this is the way I phrased it. The Chicago Bulls are an incredibly fun exercise in what modern basketball ideals can bring. Because if you watch the Bulls, I still like don't watch them and go, oh, their talent is overwhelming. People, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're 5-0. Like Josh Giddey, we'll talk about him in a second. He is the one where I'm like, oh no, like he is really, really good. Vooch is sitting here at 20-12. Vooch has been great. We'll talk about Modest is like a really exciting guy league wide. I think the Sumu has been great. They've gotten real like juice out of Kevin Huerter again, which is great. I think Patrick Williams playing better than he has at any point in his career, frankly.
100%.
And you just look at Patrick Williams and he's, only averaging like 9 points and 3 rebounds, but he's shooting it well. He's defending, like he's doing everything that you can. This team plays fast with Giddey and they play 5 out all the time. And you know what they are more than anything to me, Bryce? They are absolutely freaking ruthless on how they attack a team's weakness. That game against the Knicks that you brought up, the way that they just consistently attacked Karl Anthony Towns every time in ball screens, they were like, Cat's here, we're going. We're just going at him. Doesn't matter. Good luck stopping us. Please, like try and stop him right now. Try and stop Josh Giddey from getting to the rim. Or like, they felt like they had Landry Shamet in a ball screen, or they had Jalen Brunson on the ball handler in a ball screen. It was just like, nope, don't care. We're attacking right now. We are getting downhill with our guy. We're running a ball screen. We're bringing Cat to the level. They run a ton of fun guard to guard stuff as well. Like they'll have Huerter like set ghost screens and then like sprint out to the 3-point line, or they'll counter off that and have him sprint and roll to the rim. There was a nasty one where he totally caught Josh Hart on like a ghost screen and roll, and Pat Williams just like, decided to slice and, hit him at the rim for an easy layup. There are just so many quick actions. It feels like Billy Donovan and that staff basically looked at exactly what like the Boston Celtics have been doing the last couple of years. And they're just like, okay, we are running ball screen after ball screen after ball screen. And they're not firing from 3, to be clear. Like they are like middle of the pack in terms of 3-point attempt rate, but we're going 5 out. We're relentlessly hunting the mismatches that we want to find. And then we are attacking and we're getting up and down the court. And when we get cross-matched, if we get Josh Giddey cross-matched onto Jalen Brunson, or we get him cross-matched onto like somebody in the Hawks game, like Luke Kennard or somebody like that, right? Like we're going. Good luck. Good luck stopping us. Or if it's Kevin Huerter that brings the ball up the court and he has Luke Kennard on him, go ahead. Kevin, you run the ball screen. We're good. Like I love everything about what they're doing. And my other big takeaway for this, Bryce, and this can be, maybe part of a larger conversation. Like this is a team that has space this summer. This is an attractive market. This is a very attractive style of basketball. I kind of wonder if we're entering the point where the Chicago Bulls will be a very attractive place for potential free agents this summer, or for potential trade targets this summer, because this style of play is awesome. And on top of it, like I'll just note the 5 out of it all, they're always 5 out because they have Nikola Vucevic and Jalen Smith. Like both of those guys are real shooters and get treated like shooters. And everything in the lane is always open for their drivers. And I think that's where we can talk about Giddey and Buzelis particularly, and Sumu, honestly, because those 3 guys particularly, it feels like to me, are the ones taking advantage of the fact that it's always an open lane. No matter what it looks like offensively for them, no matter what they're running, the lane is always wide open.
Well, and the thing is, you talk about their offense, their best gifted scorer hasn't even played a game yet. Kobe White hasn't stepped on the floor for this team, and they're still doing this. They're number one in drives, number one in points in the paint to your 3-point point, third in passes made. And then I have a defensive stat that I think goes along with my notes as well that I'll save whenever we talk about that, because this is a team that we're going to talk a lot about their offense because they're fifth in offensive rating. They're also sixth in defensive rating, which puts them sixth overall in net. I still have questions about that side of it. But to your point, they're defending really well to this point. Yeah. I think they are fun to watch because the offense is so fluid and they just flow from one thing into the next. So to your point about how they always pressure the defense, they transfer from transition into half court offense. They transfer from one side of the court to the other. They transfer from a ball screen right into a DHO. And I think Giddey and Vooch both are the ones that drive this. Vooch is really good as a connector in the middle of the floor at the top of the key, not just to shoot, but he can also pick and pop. If it's not there, now I'm into the DHO. He can pass it well enough. He can short roll. A ton of keepers with him. Yes. Or like just straight DHO where he's the one making the call as to whether or not he hands it or he keeps. Yep. And there's obviously real defensive limitations with Vooch, but offensively, I mean, this is why there was always the Vooch to Golden State conversations, right? And why people thought he would make so much sense there. I'm not saying this is a one-to-one offensive system. I'm just saying this is the skill level that he possesses. And it's been super impressive to start the year. Giddey has been awesome. I want to give a shout out to Dosunmu before we get off on, I'm sure we'll get going on, Giddey and maybe Buzelis and all that. Dosunmu is good, man. That dude gets downhill. He'll bump you. He attacks the rim. The Knicks literally did not stay in front of him a single time all night long. Just consistently downhill to the paint, and then made a big time three in the fourth quarter when the Knicks were making a run. He's at 48% from the 3-point line as well. While they're not chucking threes, they are 40% from the 3-point line. So he's been incredible. Giddey, again, we're going to talk about him. I also want to quickly mention Patrick Williams. It's, he's taking a lot from us on this podcast. He's playing very well right now. Quick decisions, won more passes, made a weak side impact defensive board. The ball will still stick at times. You can see him kind of fighting with himself every once in a while. But in general, I feel like he's figured out this flow and is playing into it himself. So I want to stop and talk about Modest because I think that he's like the prime example of somebody that's taking advantage of what's like happening in this offense, right? I don't know that the fundamentals of Modest have changed all that much for me. Yeah. Like when I watch him, he's still very upright. Like he still plays very high in his stance. He still gets beaten defensively to me, but he's so perfect here. Like everything that he does within this scheme ticks exactly what the ideal for his game was when he was, entering the G League Ignite, entering the NBA, right? He is an up-tempo transition player who attacks the rim with real force, who can be a great cutter, who can knock down catch and shoot threes, like off the catch, particularly, and who can, drive in a straight line when necessary. But when you always have a wide open lane and you're, creating situations where Giddey's driving and then he's, slinging a left-handed kick out to the corner to Modest, and Modest is able to pump fake and then drive downhill and get into a wide open space and lane. He's perfect. Like when I watch Modest, I don't know that he would play more than, 17 minutes a game on the Knicks watching him just straight up, because it's a totally different scheme that I don't think would suit him quite as well. Like if I'm like looking at the Raptors, even like a team that is not playing well, I don't know if he plays more than like 20 minutes a night on that team, just because while they do play up tempo, there is still like some funkiness happening there in terms of like their offensive spacing, to where I don't think that he would be as threatening every time he touches the ball. But in this scheme,
in Chicago, where they are wide open up and down, and he's flying up the court, and there's always a wide open lane. And they've done an amazing job of like drilling these guys in terms of their spacing and in terms of how they move offensively, both when they run sets and when they're just in like continuity. It's perfect. Like, you know, I don't really care. Like if I was another team, like if I'd be the Bulls right now, if I was a Bulls fan, like, I don't know that I would care that if I was evaluating Modest and I was on another team, like, you know, I might think of it as, oh, like, I don't know if he'd be as valuable here as what he is in Chicago. But in Chicago, that dude's awesome for them. And that's all that matters for them for their next like 3 or 4 years before they have to pay him. Like, just let him continue to figure it out, continue to grow, continue to mature, and he'll figure out some of the flaws, I think. Like, I hope at least, right? Maybe some of like the bend and like upright defensive stuff that frustrates me doesn't get fixed, but I don't know, man. Like, he is freaking fun to watch on this team for sure.
Yeah, the cutting, the transition, it all plays into it. We talk about whenever you as an organization, which is crazy that I'm about to give them this comment. When you have an identity and you know what your coach is going to do with it, and then as a front office, you can match that with player acquisition, it makes a lot of sense. Maybe they've had this vision for a couple of years, and the Giddey trade and the Buzelis pick and all of that, you know, have finally merged and matched and make it happen. I will say, I think he probably fits what I like about their defense. I don't know if it is sustainable. That's what my thing was going to be. The Bulls have an identity. Can it sustain? Can it win at the highest level? But I do think what they do defensively right now is they give multiple efforts. And I don't know if they have any individual great defenders, but they have some guys with length like Buzelis, like Dosunmu, like Williams. They're 9th in the NBA in contesting shot attempts, which to me is at least a stat of they're making the rotation. They're making the second effort. They're making the recovery effort. And they have wings and guys that can play into that. We'll see how sustainable it is. Maybe teams I don't have like the deep dive of what other teams are shooting from the 3-point line right now. And I know there's variance with that. I'm not sure that they stay as the 6th best defensive rating in the NBA. But if they're going to be a top 5 offense and this level of engagement on the defensive end can keep them in the top 15 defensively, that's an interesting team to me and one that can make some noise in the East.
Yeah, I mean, look, teams are shooting 30% from 3 against them, and like that's just not going to hold. Yeah, right.
There you go. Yep.
That's kind of the reality. But you know what, though, I will say this: they do a really good job of stopping teams from shooting threes.
I saw that stat. Yep,
they really close out hard on opposing teams. Like I think that if you made me guess, they have like the lowest 3-point attempt rate against. They're playing modern basketball ideals to an absolute T. And that to me is like I said on the show on Friday that I thought Doc Rivers has been, if not the best coach in the league, you know, certainly one of them through the first 5. I actually think now that I've watched the Bulls, and I'm not just like doing the bit where I haven't watched the Bulls yet. I think Billy Donovan actually has been the best coach in the league to this point, because every single thing that they're doing is the exact thing that you should be doing with the roster that they have. And we haven't even talked about Giddey yet. Like, I feel a little bit bad about giving Josh the short shrift, but like, man, he's averaging 22, 9, and 8 and shooting 48, 46, 70. I don't think he's going to shoot 46 from 3. I would guess that he probably won't shoot 40 from 3 this year, but the shot looks a little bit better. He's way more confident in it. Like, I saw him work out this summer, and you could see that he's clearly becoming more confident in his mechanics, at least. So I'm excited to see where the Bulls go. They're a team that, you know, maybe the 3-point variance gods kind of revert and cause them some issues, or maybe they kind of stick around and they're pretty decent here for the first, you know, part of the season. And then they have to make some decisions at the deadline about what you do, because this is a team that has a lot of free agents at the end of the year as well, that they have to, you know, kind of decide, is this who we want to roll with? Is this, you know, do we want to try and build a new roster now that we have the, you know, scheme intact? Like, all of Vooch, Kevin Huerter, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, like those guys are all free agents at the end of the year. So It will be very, very interesting to see how they attack that.
Giddy playing like an all-star? I wrote that in my notes, and I kind of just, yeah. Okay.
So far, yeah. I mean, again, we'll see what happens when the shooting reverts, but yeah, definitely looks like an all-star so far. Shout out to our friends over at Nutrafol. You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, yeah, sure, like that actually works. Look, Nutrafol is not like the rest of them. It's physician formulated, clinically tested, and dermatologist recommended. It is the number one dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand. In fact, trusted by over 1.5 million people. You can feel great about what you're putting into your body since Nutrafol hair growth supplements are backed by peer-reviewed studies and they are NSF Contents certified, the gold standard and third-party certification for supplements. While many supplements rely solely on ingredient studies, Nutrafol clinically tests final formulations to ensure their efficacy using a variety of hair measurement tools like hair counts and pull tests to assess growth, quality, shedding, and texture. See thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code Game Theory. Find out why Nutrafol is the best-selling hair growth supplement brand at Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com. Promo code Game Theory, GameTheory. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code Game Theory. Okay, Bryce, you are up now with your second takeaway and our takeaway number 4 overall.
So my takeaway here is a question. And my question is this integration early in the season, or are there long-term issues for guys like Cam Johnson with the Denver Nuggets, Dez Bane with the Orlando Magic, Bradley Beal with the Los Angeles Clippers? And I know the Nuggets are actually out to a good start, and people may, disagree with the Cam Johnson one here. I guess they're 3-2, but Cam Johnson is averaging 8 points, getting 6.5 shots a game on 39%, down at 32% from 3 rebounds. Just hasn't been like a huge impact. We've talked a little bit about the Dez Bane in Orlando and them getting him going. Bradley Beal has only played 3 games with the Clippers, but is at 7 points a game for them in what is, I think, an important role for him to replace, and what I thought would be able to replace at least a little bit of what Norm Powell did for them last year. So I think I would lean, hey, this is probably integration, but is there anything with these guys that maybe we didn't see? Because I think all 3 of these moves were ones that I know I applauded and thought were smart moves. And as of right now, in terms of their individual impact on their new teams, I don't know that we've seen anything close to what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, look, like Denver just lost to Portland over the weekend, right? Like, I think that was a bit of a surprise. Cam Johnson, to me, it's just like he hasn't made shots in the first 5 games, right? I don't know that it is as simple to go into that scheme as what other people do, right? I think that playing with Jokic probably takes 30 or so games to really figure out. But I think that after those 30 or so games, I would expect that Cam Johnson's probably going to be just A-okay. It's again, like these guys that play with these weird cadences, right? Like Jake LaRavia is kind of a good example of this in LA. LaRavia like really struggled the first few games. And then Luka went out and he started playing with like real confidence, I feel like, because they like desperately needed him to be good. He had 27 against the Timberwolves, and then I thought was really, really good against the Grizzlies on Friday as well. I think he had like 13 and 4 or 5 rebounds and, made shots and was up and down and played really well there. Like, I think that these guys like Luka and like Jokic, because they play at such a what makes them special is they play at such a different cadence than everybody else does. And you have to get on their wavelength. And as soon as you get on their wavelength, it's amazing. And it becomes super easy to figure out. Right. But it takes that adjustment period. So with like, Cam Johnson, I'm like not that worried about. Bane, like, yeah, it just feels like they're using him incorrectly. We've talked about that pretty extensively. Instead of using him as like a spacer and as like they're using him a decent amount on ball to like initiate, but like instead of using him as like a spacer more often, they're using him as a screener, like off the ball for Paulo, and then like trying to integrate actions between those two. And so much of it to me is that when you use Bane as like a screener inside the arc, you're not using his space that he's creating to be able to like score or to be able to create space for Paulo to be able to drive and get to the rim instead of settling for mid-range jumpers. Right. So like to me, the Bane thing like remains TBD until they figure out the right way to use him, in my opinion. Beal is another interesting one. The Clippers, like I've only watched one of their games, so I don't want to like really dig in. Like there's a reason that we haven't talked a lot about them. I just haven't watched a ton of their games yet. But yeah, like him at 6.7 points, having played 3 games, obviously is somewhat concerning. Look, it's so early. It just takes the NBA now more than ever is so fast and so up tempo, and you have to make decisions so quickly that I think that we might see more of this, where it takes guys a bit of time to build that synergy with one another. But then like you look at the Warriors and there are certain guys there that have looked really good early. So I think that at the end of the day, like it's probably just a situation where as the NBA becomes faster and more up tempo and, more based on timing of your sets and actions and making sure that everything is running, like a absolutely perfect cog in a, bigger machine, that, it might take, 10 games, 15 games for some guys to figure it out.
I just thought it was interesting that some of the bigger names we saw get moved this offseason, because I was trying to go through all of the teams and see like what big names are really thriving early on. And I didn't come up with one. I assume maybe I'm forgetting somebody somewhere, but it was like, these were 3 of the bigger names. And it's like, man, if you look at what these guys have averaged to their career, even last year, and then what they're doing now, it's underwhelming. But more so, I think my point was what you just said, which is it takes time. Like it's not as easy just to flow into a new system, different expectations, specifically for Cam Johnson going from where he was to a team that's competing for a title now. And that is going to take some time, some real time to get integrated. I think when I look like the Hawks guys, Porzingis and Nas numbers were pretty good so far this year.
I mean, look, like there's one like very obvious example of
KD.
Yeah. Like KD is averaging 27, 5 and 2 and shooting 55, 41, 85. Like, I mean, like he's just getting open shot after open shot with Şengün there, it feels like. So like he's one where he's just like seamlessly fit in, I feel like, when I watch them.
Yeah. So, but I feel like he has a style offensively that just I don't want to say you adjust to him though. Like the way he gets buckets, I think makes that, and obviously he's the best player of all the players we're talking about here as well. So, anyway, it's interesting. I'm interested to keep, because I think he is still a good connector. Obviously what really made me think with Cam Johnson was I watched a Nets game where Porter Jr. was unreal shot making. And I'm like, does Denver ever miss that? Do they miss like that ability of Porter Jr. to just go make like insanely tough shots at times? And so I looked up, I just looked at his numbers and my notes on his like, man, hasn't gotten into it. I'm not saying they shouldn't have made the trade. It's what got me down the rabbit hole of this idea, or at least this question, along with what we've talked about with Bane. And then I thought Bradley Beal had become an underappreciated player because of his contract, even with what his numbers are. I thought that was a great, smart move by the Clippers, and he was going to be able to do a lot of what Norm Powell was doing. And so far that has not proven to be true.
Yeah, the Porter one is funny because you look at the raw numbers and you're like, oh, he's averaging like 22, 6, and 3 on 50% from the field and 41 from 3. And then like realistically, he's played 2 good games.
Yeah.
Like he was like not good in the Charlotte game in the opener. And I thought he was terrible in the Spurs game. And then like the Houston game, I guess he was like, okay, but it's the Atlanta and the Cleveland games that are like really, really boosting his numbers right now.
He was unreal in the Atlantic. Like it was the shot
awesome
making was
game.
insane.
Yeah, just like completely absurd in the Atlanta game. So yeah, that's a funny one. But yeah, I mean, look, like I think that we just have to slow down on some of these guys just because of the way that the game is played now. Like it's I would guess it takes longer to integrate now than what it did even like 5 years ago to each team.
Yeah.
Okay. Takeaway number 5 here. The next 15 or so games for the Atlanta Hawks will be their most important 15 or so games within the last 5 seasons. So from the time that they made the conference finals to this season included. Obviously, the conference finals games are the most important games, but from the time that ended until now, these next 15 games or so without Trae Young, where he has a sprained MCL, he's going to miss the next 4 weeks or be reevaluated after 4 weeks, is what they're saying. Those are now the most important games that they've played in 5 years because this is a team that came into the year with real expectations, right? You go out and you get Kristaps Porzingis. You decide to pay Dyson Daniels. Luke Kennard is a big addition. Obviously, Nickeil Alexander-Walker was a big addition in the sign and trade. I've really liked Mo Gay. You have the rising number 1 overall pick, who was second in Rookie of the Year last year in Zach Ricochet. Jalen Johnson coming back from injury. Johnson has looked quite good so far this year. Like, you have all of the pieces that you need to theoretically make a run. They were one of your favorites in the preseason based off of the way that this roster fit together. And I don't disagree with that take. I think the roster fits really, really well together. But now this is a team where without Trae Young, where do they get offense? Where do they get half-court offensive production? Where do they get consistent play from the guard positions? Right? Because Dyson Daniels can be a question mark offensively. Nickeil Alexander-Walker can be sometimes a question mark if the shot isn't falling all the time. Luke Kennard can be a question mark defensively, right? So where do they get the half-court offensive play? They obviously dropped like 128 in their game against Indiana, but Indiana just can't keep anybody out of the paint right now. In the first 6 minutes that those starters played in that game, I thought it was like really clunky and really rough. And then they figured it out a little bit later. Again, they started to play more up tempo and really started to attack a bit more on like cross matches and in transition. And, that team's playing like Mac McClung and Ray J. Dennis and, all due respect to those guys, but it's just like a bit of a different beast. How Atlanta deals with getting half court offensive production now without Trae Young, I think really could play a significant role in what they decide to do with Trae Young, because Trae Young at the end of this season can theoretically elect to become a free agent. He has a player option at $49 million for 2026-27. If they feel like they play really well, do they look at, maybe Trae isn't our guy for the future? Or if they really struggle, do they decide, oh no, like we have to pull out all the stops because we need to keep Trae Young? It could go either way. I'm not sitting here saying like Trae Young's like an immediate trade candidate. I don't know based off this, but to me, these next 15 games are absolutely going to tell the tale of how possible it is that they can survive without Trae Young and how possible it is that they could be looking at a different kind of roster build moving forward where maybe they go super big, right? Maybe they decide, we're going to try and be enormous with Dyson and with Alexander Walker, and then our wings with Ricochet and Johnson, and then we have Kristaps, obviously. Like, they could easily pivot into just being a massive team that defends and plays super hard on defense and, figures it out on offense and goes to find like a bigger point guard somewhere, right? Or they could decide, no, we desperately need Trae Young. We have to keep him. We have to figure this all out. Just finally, real quick, what their schedule looks like. They're playing Cleveland right now. They're down 9 while we're talking. Who knows what that looks like? Then 3 home games against Orlando, Toronto, and the Lakers. Then 4 road games against the Clippers, Sacramento, Utah, Phoenix, Detroit. The Detroit game is at home, and then 2 more road games against San Antonio, New Orleans, and then they get Charlotte, Washington, Cleveland again here at the end of the month. So it's about a month's worth of games. I think that particularly these first like 4 or 5 games here where you have Cleveland, Orlando, Toronto, both the LA teams, those are competitive teams that will tell us a lot about where this team is headed.
Yeah, it was the first thing I wrote at that time when I was watching the game. I didn't know how long Trae Young was going to be out, but this is a huge opportunity for Jalen Johnson. And I wonder if he does get, primary initiator minutes and opportunities to show what he can be all around. I also think it's a big opportunity for Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think I'm on the side of Na has a little bit more on-ball juice than what other people believe with him. And so they're going to need that from him as well. We'll see how much they lean into Dyson doing a little bit of that. That they have some answers. It's just they don't have like the guy, like the guy that's always going to do it. It'd be a little bit more by committee. It will be interesting to see if they change up the offense a little bit, find a flow, not using as many ball screens. But I think this is exactly right in terms of you get a lot of data here because it is a long enough stretch where you can go, okay, we completely fell apart. We had no idea and we never figured it back out. It may look gross for 5 games, but games 6 through how many ever are you able to, figure it out once guys adjust to their new roles, or do they never? And you, like you said, now all of a sudden Trae Young has a bunch of leverage and you have to really feel like you have to keep him because you can't replace what he drives on the offensive end. So it's a huge stretch for them, for guys individually, but also for them as a team, because if you go, 5 and something bad in this stretch without Trae Young and get way behind in the standings, that's obviously going to affect things moving forward from a team perspective as well.
Yeah. For me, having watched the Pacers game, like particularly, obviously Trae Young like missed a good portion of the Nets game where he got hurt, but like, you don't go into that with a plan without Trae, right? Like you probably went into the game with the Pacers with like something of a plan. It felt like to me they leaned a lot more into like entering the ball in at the high post with like Kristaps or Jalen Johnson and like kind of letting those guys kind of initiate a little bit more consistently. With Kristaps, it was like a super mixed bag because Kristaps has never really been a great passer. And then with Jalen, obviously it was really like Jalen can pass. Jalen is a high level creator, especially in transition. The offense just felt less random to me. It felt like they were getting in and out of sets to try and create offense in a real way. And it just felt like, I know that eventually they really picked up the pace, and that's where, it felt like they were able to really take advantage of Indiana in that game, really by like the end of the first quarter onward. But against teams where you can't do that as well, because Indiana kind of feeds into that no point of attack defense right now. And also they play up tempo on offense. So you can get some misses from them and then kind of run it down their throats on the other end against a team like Cleveland, right? Who they're playing right now, where again, haven't watched a second of this game yet. I just say that this will be a really interesting thing to track, because Cleveland is theoretically a team that could slow down their offense, and they have 32 through the first 15 minutes of this game, which isn't ideal, obviously, from a scoring perspective. So, we'll see what they're kind of able to do, I think is my takeaway here. But this is from a roster structural perspective now, just so incredibly important, these 15 games, because Ansi Salah is not connected to Trae Young like in any way, beyond just being the GM of the team that Trae Young plays for now. Didn't draft him, wasn't there when they drafted him. Does he decide to move in a different direction to build a roster that maybe he thinks is a little bit more in his own image? Or does he decide that Trae Young is in his image? But the fact that they did not extend him and now this has come up creates a fascinating paradigm to watch with the Atlanta Hawks.
Yep. They were, like I said, they were a fun team or an interesting team to watch coming into the year. And this makes it even more so.
I agree. Bryce, you are up with takeaway number 6.
So I'm going to kind of mesh some stuff together here, but Lauri Markkanen is awesome at basketball. And the Utah Jazz and that front line is also good at basketball. And
yeah.
I actually thought this was one where you were going to use it. And so I didn't think you were going to maybe steal one of mine. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. So today I just kind of looked for some stats and it was like, Julius Randle's putting up great numbers. Jamal Murray's off to a good start. Dylan Brooks is taking 10 threes a game. Actually, there's another Utah Jazz player that has an interesting stat. Jokic's defensive rebounds plus assists per game numbers are funny, is like incredible. I think Dembona is second in the NBA in blocks per game right now. But ultimately, I landed on Lauri Markkanen averaging 34 a game.
Yeah.
And then
he's going like nuclear.
Yeah. But also him, Walker Kessler, and Kyle Filipowski's 3-man lineup being a plus 22 net rating for this team. And I'm like, no, that seems like something worth talking about, because this might not be a team we talk a ton about as games continue, other than, is Lowry getting traded? Is Walker getting traded? And so I wanted to just like talk about them as a basketball team, what Will Hardy does running sets and the creativity that they do things, and Keontae George getting to the free throw line almost 10 times a game, which is fascinating as well. But I wanted to start with Lowry in the front line.
Yeah, I was texting with some friends over the weekend trying to decide on like a nickname for the front line.
Yeah.
Like the Caucasian convention was a fun one. Someone mentioned all white, as in like the Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
Like, all right. I thought that was pretty funny because there are 3 of them. So it just kind of like tracked synergistically. I don't think we have it yet, unfortunately, but there's got to be something there nickname wise that works. I have so thoroughly enjoyed watching this team. I know they're 2-3. I know that, they can't defend anybody. I kind of don't care.
Yeah.
Like, they're just a very fun basketball team. Kessler is, I think he's missing, this next game here.
Him and Filipowski are not playing tonight against Charlotte. So
yeah, so that's a huge bummer. So like, I don't know that I have a reason to watch that game all that much right now. But Markkanen is unbelievable at this point. 34 points on 51, 39, 87. Just such a savage play finisher, such a monster in terms of being able to knock down shots from 3. They've really weaponized him in certain sets, playing the 3 to be able to like come off of screens and create 3-point shots for him. I have really thought that Keontae George has run the show better than any point he has ever run the show in his career. He's still like a turnover machine on some level. He's averaging 4 a game, but you know what? When you're getting to the line 9 times a game, like a lot of flaws kind of get papered over, especially when you're also averaging 9 assists within that offensive scheme. So I'm kind of trying to decide how much of this I think is sustainable. I do think that just watching him, he feels more under control than at any point I've ever seen him. My issue with Keontae has always been like, is he a good enough shooter to play the style that he played as like a super primary scorer? throughout his time, in high school and at Baylor. And look, like he's still shooting 26% from three early on. That will jump. He's not that level of shooter either, but he has adjusted his play style this year very clearly to initiate and get his team in and out of actions. Like he had to have understood coming into the year that, oh no, I have to be a point guard. I can't be a combo guard. Or maybe someone like in his orbit, like sat him down and said, look at the guys that are getting paid right now and look at the guys that aren't getting paid right now. Guys like you, or at least what you were coming into the year, is like real combo guard who shoots a lot of like perimeter jumpers and might not be the most efficient player in the world. Like they're just not getting paid right now is the reality. So if you want to get a real deal from Utah or from anybody else league wide, you're going to have to make some adjustments to what you do. And you're going to have to make some adjustments and become more of an on-ball force and more of an on-ball player. And to this point, like because he's getting to the line more consistently and because the passing ability has taken away some of the shitty shots he used to take, some of the bad shots he used to take. I have to remember, I'm trying not to curse as much on this show. Because he's taking those away, or because those are being taken away, it's not as bad now. The efficiency is not as bad. And it's helped them a lot. It's helped their overall offensive infrastructure way more that he's just frankly played like a more serious brand of basketball.
Yeah, he had a really nice ball screen usage in the game I watched against the Blazers. But, Markkanen is just so fun. The versatility, the movement shooting, the athleticism. It's so hard to defend him off the ball because you want to top lock him because he can shoot off movement, but then he's athletic enough to catch the back doors. And then you add in, like they're consistently moving and back cutting and flare screening, and they generate a ton of good looks because of that. And then I think Kessler, the one thing is like he's averaging a lot of turnovers right now. Some of his passing in the couple of games I've watched is he's just very off target, but he finishes at a high percentage. He offensive rebounds. He obviously protects the rim, and he's active with his hands as well. So he's just under 2 blocks a game, but he also has 1.5 steals a game because he's active with his hands. So if somebody will drive, he doesn't just stand there with his hands down. He gets his hands active and will be able to get a deflection there. And it also seemed like he was a good screen setter in that game. I made a note of that. So it's an interesting front line. Both of us feel like Filipowski is a skilled player. He's the one where, like, if you just look at the box score numbers, nothing's going to really impress you at all. He's not shooting a great percentage right now. But again, for a team that's not that good, not going to win a ton of games, I do find myself enjoying watching them, especially on the offensive end.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talked a lot about Will Hardy coming into the year, that he's just like an awesome offensive basketball mind. And that has remained true. And yeah, Flip's numbers aren't great, but he moves the ball. Like he understands what his role is, it feels like, within the offense. And that's the biggest thing for me. Like the ball never really seems to stick with him. And he does get guarded out there. Like teams don't just like leave him alone, even though he's shooting 31 from 3. So I don't know. Like I've really enjoyed the front line so far. I think it's been really fun. And Keontae has been like the big takeaway for me. I've always been like very skeptical of him, and he looks really good so far and is like deserving of a lot of credit. We will see if the free throw stuff holds up.
Yeah.
Like some of it does feel like a little bit grifty, and I wonder if it comes down a little bit. I mean, 9 attempts per game is pretty aggressive right now, but even if he lives at like 6 or 7 a game, it would be a huge important like kind of development for him, given that he was only at like 4 per game last year.
Yeah, no, I think him developing there would be massive for them. And I think getting to the free throw line would be huge because the 3-point percentage, listen, like he has one of those shooting strokes that I'm just like, it fools you because I think it does look fluid and smooth, and I've always liked it. But I mean, at the end of the day, Sam, we have a pretty good sample of almost 1,000 3-point attempts in his career, and he's at 34%, And so like, I just wonder if if the shot making is ever going to be as good as what I think it should be, just based on the fluidity of the form. Even in college, he took 230 attempts was at 34%. At some point, I just have to say, like, okay, he's showing me who he is as a shooter. So can the free throw line be somewhere he gets to? Can the creation, can the ball screen usage, all of that be real enough to make up for not being an elite level shot maker and shooter? And, whenever you have these other guys in that front court, and all of a sudden it gets interesting now, where that was a group of, that team was one where we like, who were the young players you get super excited about? Sometimes it was tough to answer. Here early in the year, it's like, okay, I really like what we're seeing from Kessler, like Flip. Keontae looks like maybe he's taking a jump. Ace has gotten off to a slow start. We'll see how that plays out. But again, whenever you have Will Hardy and doing what he's doing, it's fun to watch all of that.
Yeah, like a lot of their young guys have been like sort of fun. Like Sensabaugh come in and given them like an offensive boost from time to time.
Yeah.
I'll say this, like the Nurkic minutes haven't been totally catastrophic.
I think he fits in terms of evaluating their young guys on the offensive end.
Yes.
It's a disaster defensively, Sam, but
totally.
He can come in, he's skilled, he sets good screens, he can space the floor. If you want to evaluate Cody Williams and Bryce Sensabaugh and Isaiah Collier when he gets back, etc., Nurkic playing the way he is right now allows you to do that as a backup big. And there's some value to that for a team that doesn't need to win games right now anyway. Yeah.
No, I agree. Okay. But by the way, did you watch any of the Pelicans game today?
No. No,
I mean, it's a tough time, Bryce. It's a rough time with the Pelicans right now. There was never any point in that game where the defensive infrastructure looked even like salvageable to me.
Fears was good.
Willie Green
was Fears good. I saw somebody tweet about Fears.
It was fine. Yeah, like drilled threes tonight. So like when you hit 4 threes, if he ever hits 4 threes, he's always going to be pretty good in a game. It's just like, can he consistently make shots? And that's, sustainable, maybe not, but he played pretty solid, I thought, especially against that defense. Like he played a solid basketball game for sure.
Yeah. At least he pressures the paint, man. He pressures the paint. So
he really does.
I'm gonna have to force myself to watch Pelicans game with how things are going right now. I'm gonna have to
like
sure they don't get lost in the wash.
Bryce, they hit 40% from 3 tonight on 40 attempts and lost by 30.
Yeah, that's
crazy. That's absolutely crazy. That team is dreadful. Shout out the Hawks, man. Shout out Ansi Salah. Here's another thing with Ansi that might make the Trae Young decision for him. What if they just get Darren Peterson? What if that's the reality of what happens and they just end up with Darren and it's just like, well, okay, cool. This is great. We have the guy.
Yeah. Makes it a lot easier.
Makes it a lot easier to not have to pay Trae Young $50 million or 60 or 70, even potentially, depending on what another team would give him. Probably 60, I would guess. Okay, Bryce, we got to get out of here. Tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, Motor City Hoops Substack. If you're interested in anything Detroit Pistons or your team plays the Pistons, or you're interested in a Cade Cunningham defensive breakdown or Jalen Duren play finishing video breakdown, those are over there recently. Game Theory Substack, as Sam mentioned earlier, contribute 1 or 2 videos there every week. Now that college basketball is starting up, most of my video breakdowns, I think, will come from that, evaluating prospects in individual games. And then, of course, right here, Sam, Game Theory Podcast with the Sam Vecenie.
My guess is that a breakdown I do this week will be Steph Castle, just because he's been really fun and I enjoy watching Spurs games. So I would guess that I will probably do a Castle game. And then later this week, I will do draft. I will definitely do something on the Florida-Arizona game that is on Monday. That I can assure you, I am thrilled to watch that game. Those are 2 really fun teams. So I'm very, very excited about that one. Go to The Athletic, keep me employed over there. like Bryce said, go to the Game Theory Substack, gametheorysamv.substack.com. Hopefully by the time that this is out, some of the charging issues that our provider is having will be fixed, and you guys can subscribe there. If not, we will keep you in the loop on when that happens. But we will be back tomorrow with our draft preview show, and then that'll go up on Tuesday. And until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.